Okay, let's talk about information. It's a word we throw around constantly, right? But what if I told you that our everyday idea of it, well, it's missing the most important part of the story. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with that big question. What is information, really? I mean, we talk about getting it, processing it, being completely overloaded by it, but what does the word actually mean at its core? To find the answer, we have to go back in time, back to the mid-20th century, and meet a pretty incredible guy.
And here he is. Meet Claude Shannon, the father of information theory, the architect of our entire digital world. This is the man who basically gave us the language, the math, to talk about information in a way no one ever had before.
So who was this guy? Well, Shannon was an absolute genius, a mathematician and engineer over at Bell Labs. In 1948, he drops his paper, A Mathematical Theory of Communication, and just boom, he basically invents the entire field of information theory. He's the reason you and I talk about bits of data. But here's the kicker, and why I love this story. He was also this total character. He was known for building juggling machines and literally unicycling down the hallways at Bell Labs. And that mix of serious, rigorous math and this kind of playful curiosity, that's really the key to understanding everything that followed.
Okay, so here's where the plot thickens. Shannon's theory was, without a doubt, revolutionary, but he himself was super clear about what his theory was for, and maybe more importantly, what it was not for. And the crazy part is, for decades, almost everybody just completely ignored those limits he put on it.
This right here, this quote from his original paper is everything. The semantic aspects of communication are irrelevant to the engineering problem. What he's saying is, look, I'm an engineer. I'm solving an engineering problem. How do you get a message from point A to point B without it getting corrupted? He was crystal clear that the meaning of that message had nothing to do with what he was trying to solve.
So let's put that side by side. What did Shannon's theory actually solve? Well, things like signal reliability, channel capacity, and how to quantify uncertainty. It's the plumbing of communication. But look at what he deliberately left on the cutting room floor. Meaning, relevance, decisions, action, cognition itself. He never ever claimed to be explaining what you should do with the information once it arrived. He just wanted to make sure it got there in one piece. Think about it this way. Shannon's theory tells you that a message, say a string of ones and zeros, arrived perfectly. Great, but it can't tell you if that message is the cure for cancer or just a bunch of random static. It can't tell you if that message actually matters. And to be fair, that's a problem he never set out to solve in the first place.
Okay, so that's the big disconnect. This is where we need to pivot to a totally new way of thinking. If Shannon gave us the theory of transmission, what's the theory of relevance? What's the framework for information that actually, matters? Well, the answer is to shift our focus away from the signal itself and onto what that signal forces a living thing to do. It's not about transmission, it's about control.
So in this new framework, the fundamental unit of analysis isn't the bit anymore. It's behavior change. That's it. Meaningful information is whatever causes a system to go from doing one thing, let's call it behavior 1, to doing something else, behavior 2. If a signal comes in and nothing changes, then for that system at that moment, it wasn't actually information. It was just noise.
But why would any living thing change its behavior? What's the ultimate driver? Well, it boils down to 3 constant, unchanging goals that all life shares. We can call it ESR for short. The need to get energy, the need to maintain safety, and the drive for reproduction. Any signal that's relevant to one of those 3 core tasks, that's information that matters.
So, okay, if ES are the fundamental goals of life, then how do organisms actually organize all this incoming information to meet those goals? This is where a really powerful new idea comes in, the 5-task model. It's basically a new architecture for thinking about cognition, one that's based on the real-world survival problems that life has to solve. Now, it's really important to get this. These 5 tasks are not just some random checklist. They're what's called a cumulative scaffold. You can see it here. Think of it like building blocks stacked on top of each other. Each higher level absolutely depends on the capabilities of the ones below it. You literally can't do task 3 until you've mastered tasks 1 and 2. It's a progression. So let's climb that ladder real quick. At the very bottom, you have task 1, basic environmental control. Super simple stuff, like a plant turning towards the light. Then comes task 2, which is about engaging with other moving things. A predator chasing prey. Task 3 is where things get more complex. It's about signaling and interpreting those signals. Task 4 is all about managing group dynamics, like coalitions and alliances. And finally, at the very top, you get task 5,
controlling symbolic systems, which is where things like human language live.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea somebody cooked up, it's grounded in a ton of empirical data. This model was built by looking at over 1,500 different species, and what they found is that these tasks, they show up in this exact fixed order, all across the tree of life. That's pretty wild.
All right, so let's bring it back to our hero, Claude Shannon. Where does this leave him? Well, it means he was absolutely right all along. The problem was never with his theory. The problem was with us. We were trying to make his theory do a job it was never, ever built to do.
Let's look at this comparison again. Shannon's theory is the masterclass in formalizing transmission. The 5-task model, on the other hand, formalizes control. Shannon's work is about quantifying channel uncertainty. The 5-task model is about identifying survival uncertainty. One explains signal fidelity. Did the message get here correctly? The other explains task relevance. Does this message matter for my survival? See, they're not competing ideas. They're two different but equally crucial parts of the whole shebang.
Here's the big takeaway. Shannon's theory is the bedrock, the foundation. It operates below task 1. His math explains how a photon from the sun travels millions of miles and arrives perfectly at a plant's leaf. That's the transmission problem. The 5-task model then takes over, explaining why that plant actually does something with that photon, why it turns towards the light. It's the so what part of the equation.
And this leads us to a really profound point, especially with everything happening in AI today. Cognition does not emerge from just getting better and better at compressing and predicting data.
So that leaves us with a final, massive question to chew on. If cognition is really about control, not just processing, if intelligence is about controlling your behavior to survive in a messy, uncertain world, then what should we actually be trying to control? What are the problems we should be focused on solving? And just to give full credit where it's due, the 5-task model that we've been walking through comes from the work of Sergei Frolov and his project, Cognitivo.